Today is a beautiful day. We're 75 degrees. Today, I'm going to talk about what so many of you have been asking me, kitty litter. Why do I buy so much kitty litter? And I don't even have a cat. Let's get into that because I use this for gardening. And it's phenomenal and it's cheap. And I want to make sure you know that we're also going to talk about houseplants because this stuff could be a lifesaver for your houseplants. So hi, it's Robbie from Southern California, and today I am going to talk about kitty litter, and I've been getting messages constantly on what do you do with kitty litter when you don't have a cat? Let me tell you something. This has been great, but it's got to be the right kitty litter. If you buy the wrong kitty litter, you're going to end your plant's life. So if you get the right one, you've got the perfect solution for so many of your issues, especially if you're in a warm area. So let's talk about how I use it. If you all know, probably, you've got in your soil, your potting mix, you get either vermiculite, perlite, or they might mix them. Now, perlite, that is added in there. It's usually white or an off-white. That goes in the soil, and that creates space. So this way, when the roots grow and it's not going to get compacted. So you've got space there, but it does not retain any water at all, okay? Now, vermiculite is different. That holds water. So not only does it create space, but when you water your plants, the little pieces will retain water. Now, vermiculite is great, but the problem is, if you look it up and you want to get a straight bag of just vermiculite, it would cost you a lot of money. Both of them, perlite and vermiculite, is really expensive. Where kitty litter, this big bag is about $5, $5.50. Now, we'll get into exactly which one to buy, but let me show you how I use it. So let's say I went out in the garden and I have this succulent. So today, let's say I'm doing succulents, and these are succulents too. These are dragon fruit that are growing in it, but we do other things too. I use it for a lot of stuff. So let's say I'm doing a succulent. Well, what I would want to do is get, let's say, potting soil or something out of another container, and basically for a succulent or cactus, I would use 50-50 of the kitty litter. And you don't have to be exact, okay? So I put 50% in of that, and then I would take, approximately 50% of this. Now, I know if you watch some of my old videos, I used to sift it, and then I used to wash it. I don't do that anymore. It doesn't matter if it's powder. It goes into the soil, and it all works great. So no sifting. Don't worry about it. If you want to sift it, you can. Then you just mix it up. And let's say I'm going to plant in here. Ooh, that's not a good thing because everything's going to fall through. Let me grab something. This might give you a tip on something. Because if your holes are too big, and you know what's going to happen. You can put newspaper on the bottom, paper towels, but I use leaves. It adds nutrition to the soil as well and create living soil. So now, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So now, let me move this. This was just out of another container. You would take this, fill it up, and like I said, if you're using a little bit more, it wouldn't matter. And I would just take this, clean off any dead leaves. And if you want, you can take a few more leaves off. They're a little yellow, but remember, you can grow the leaves too. I've grown leaves that look like they were not good at all. Oh, it's going to have a baby inside. Push it in and water it. And you know what, if you want with the leaves, stick them in there too, because when they grow a new plant, they grow at the base. They'll grow roots, and then all of a sudden a baby plant out of your succulents will pop out of the leaves. Don't throw leaves away. You have nothing to lose with sticking them in some soil. And then the only other thing I have to do is water it. Now, when I'm doing peas, and that's what I did here. Oh, we can put this in this now. I'm using about 25% kitty litter, and then the rest I'm using potting mix because that's how I grow my seedlings. Now, again, why do I put that in my seed mix for my vegetable plants? I don't do it all the time. If I've got it in front of me, I do it. If you don't do it, it's not going to be a big deal, but it helps retain water, especially now that we're starting to get into warm weather. That's when we want to make sure our soil doesn't dry out, because if you're planting seeds, really young plants, if they dry out, they're gone. They're not going to make it back. It's not a big plant that can droop and say, please water me, please water. No. Seedlings, when they go down, they're usually gone, especially seeds. Now, the reason I said you have to get a certain kitty litter, let me get this up here. Now, this one I get from Walmart. I have nothing to do with Walmart, by the way. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not selling this product or anything, for them. Nobody's contacted me. But you can get it at any place. You can go to Target. You can go to the grocery store. The main thing you want to get all natural, unscented kitty litter, cat litter, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter if it's got dust. This says it's 99% dust free. It's all natural. Read the ingredients. There's nothing in here but clay. All right, so it's broken up clay, and that is it. Now the clay will act like a sponge. It will just hold water. So when you water this, it's not going to swell up. It's not going to get any bigger, but it holds water. So it's like you're putting tiny little sponges inside your plant. So when you water it and you walk away and you forget to go back the next day or in 2 days and it's warm, these are going to hold water for your plant. Now, I also use it as a mulch on top for a lot of my plants. When I'm starting seedlings, I just sprinkle it around the top, and that holds moisture in there too, because as it comes up, it'll wick it up and then eventually it will dry. So it's not going to be holding it in there constantly, but it will hold it under the soil. That's the main thing I use it for. I'm doing all kinds of succulents. I actually picked up a couple leaves once when I was at the store. It was on the ground, and they're now growing in the big plants, also grown in kitty litter. I've got hibiscus. I went to my daughter's house, cut some hibiscus there, put it in a container like this with 50-50, and I now have hibiscus that is now rooted. You can do it for propagating. You could do it for starting plants. You don't have to put it all over your garden, but if you're having an issue maybe with your soil drying out too fast, you could dig it in a little bit and try it that way. Even these small containers, you know how sometimes we find these at the dollar stores and they're so cute? If you put straight potting mix in here, it's going to dry out really fast, even though it's plastic, and the plastic helps retain the water for your plant because it can't evaporate anywhere but up. The kitty litter will hold water for your plants, and this is what I use kitty litter for. I use it for a lot of my propagating seedlings, and even when I'm transplanting flowers, I put it in there too. More so in the soil than on the top, because when it's in there, I know for sure it's holding water for my plants. If you're in the desert area and you're going in the summer now and it's dry, make sure you try kitty litter if you're having a problem in your garden. And even for lettuce growing off season. Wait a minute. Everybody's telling me I can't grow lettuce. Do you know I grow lettuce 12 months out of the year? All year I grow lettuce. I grow it in a container and I move it where I want it. I don't, plant it in one spot and leave it there. I move it where the lettuce needs to grow. Now, if you add kitty litter to your soil and you want to grow lettuce, it will hold water because lettuce acts to the atmosphere, the air, and when it dries, the air and the soil, it bolts right away because it's saying, oh, it's too warm, let's bolt, drop our seeds, and then when it rains again, it will grow. But when you add kitty litter to the soil, it helps retain water. So even though you're saying, wait, I'm in a hot area, I have to keep watering it, you won't have to water as much because the kitty litter, this stuff is amazing, helps hold water. If you bought a bag this big of vermiculite, I think it will cost you $50 to $75, a big, heavy bag. You can get vermiculite mixed in with cheap potting mix or soil, but a bag itself would be real expensive. Don't tell anybody because they'll raise the price. So if you go to the store and you buy the kitty litter for growing your plants in, just tell them you got a cat. Because if they find out us gardeners are using this, they'll raise the price. They seem to be doing that a lot on a lot of things. So I hope I've answered your questions on how I use kitty litter and why. If you're in a really wet area and it's always raining, even in the summer, you won't need the kitty litter because your soil will be wet enough for your plants. But if you're in a warm area, go ahead and use it. And if you're in an area that gets warm and then it's cold, it's not going to hurt anything because it keeps the soil from compacting because it acts like it's perlite or vermiculite, but it's only $5 for a great big 20-pound bag. It's going to last you a long time. Gary's done his whole back room, all his dragon fruit with that. Here's some seedlings I started in the house, and it's half and half. half kitty litter, half potting soil or potting mix, and I've got all these baby dragon fruit coming up in a pencil box. So think about it if you've got issues. If you're doing great, don't change anything. But if you've got issues of your soil drying out for your potted plants maybe too fast, try kitty litter. Another hint on this, if you put kitty litter on your house plants on the top, this is something I should talk about. I know a lot of us are gardening or feeding hummingbirds, but the thing is, we're not all doing gardening. We're doing house plants instead. If you load the whole top up with kitty litter on the top, you're going to have less gnat problems. You know those little flies, nasty little flies that get into the roots of your plants and they eat up your plants and you have flies all over your house, in the house. Not everybody gets it, but once in a while you do, because the cycle of life on those flies, they don't like this, because what they need to do is come to the soil and lay their eggs on damp houseplant soil. But if they can't get to the soil because they can't dig and they cannot crawl through this, they'll go look for another plant. So that's a big tip for houseplant people, because this can stop that problem. Try it if you've got the problem. It's not going to hurt anything, and I actually think it looks quite attractive. So I hope I've given you some information. Ask me questions, because I probably missed a lot of other stuff I could have talked about, because I always do. I finish up the video and go, nuts, I should have said this, or I could have talked about this, or I used it this way. So ask questions so I can come back, add in what I forgot, or add in maybe some of the great questions that you're going to ask me. And remember, no question is stupid. All questions are great, because it makes everybody think and it answers other people's questions as well. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye. It does look so pretty. So let's not waste it, even though it has cost nothing.